Margot Robbie walked onto The Late Show, expecting to promote Barbie's sequel. Instead, Stephen Colbert turned it into an interrogation about feminism and woke culture. What started as a celebration of a billion-dollar phenomenon quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable confrontations in late-night history. And when Colbert pushed too far, suggesting that Barbie was nothing more than political propaganda, Margot did something that left everyone speechless. She stood up, looked him dead in the eye, and said words that will echo through Hollywood for years. Make sure you're subscribed, because this walkout is legendary. The Late Show studio lights gleamed as Margot Robbie made her entrance. At 35, she looked radiant. Honey blonde hair, styled in soft waves, wearing a perfectly tailored pink blazer over a crisp white blouse. The audience exploded with applause as she settled into the guest chair, flashing that signature smile that had captivated audiences worldwide. Margot Robbie, welcome back to The Late Show. Stephen Colbert beamed, his gray hair and modern plastic frame glasses catching the studio lights. The woman who made pink the color of 2023. How does it feel knowing you're about to do it all over again? It's surreal, Stephen, Margot laughed warmly. When we made the first Barbie, we hoped people would connect with it. But what happened? The way it resonated globally, that was beyond anything we imagined. Beyond is an understatement, Colbert said, leaning back. $1.4 billion worldwide. That's not just a movie. That's a cultural reset. Greta Gerwig deserves all the credit, Margot said genuinely. She created something that wasn't just about a doll. It was about identity, purpose, finding yourself in a world that wants to define you. The conversation flowed naturally. They discussed the sequel's development, working with Ryan Gosling again, and the creative challenges of following up such massive success. Margot spoke passionately, her Australian accent peeking through when she got excited. But then Colbert's tone shifted. You know, Margot, there's been interesting debate about what Barbie represents. Some people loved it. Others felt it pushed certain agendas a little too hard. What's your take on that criticism? Margot's smile remained, but her eyes sharpened. I'm not sure what you mean by agendas. The film was about self-discovery. That's pretty universal. Sure, Colbert said, but you can't deny it became a flashpoint for conversations about feminism, gender politics, cultural warfare. Or, Margot interrupted gently, it became a story that millions of people saw themselves in. Colbert leaned forward, and anyone watching closely could see the interview shifting gears. But there were critics, legitimate critics, who felt the film was divisive, that it painted men in a negative light. That it was less about empowerment and more about political messaging. Margot's posture straightened. Stephen, with respect, I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what the film was about. Ken's journey was just as important as Barbie's. It wasn't about men versus women. It was about both discovering who they are beyond societal expectations. Right, but some people felt attacked by it, Colbert pressed. Conservative commentators, family groups, they argued the film was pushing woke ideology onto children. Woke ideology, Margot repeated slowly. That's an interesting phrase. What does it actually mean in this context? I think you know what it means, Colbert said with a slight smirk. The cultural push toward progressive values that some people find alienating. Margot's jaw tightened visibly. So, treating people with dignity and exploring complex emotions is alienating? That's what you're suggesting? I'm suggesting that not everyone appreciated being lectured about gender dynamics in what they thought would be a fun family film. Lectured, Margot said, and her voice had taken on an edge now. Stephen, nobody was lectured. The film presented ideas and let people think for themselves. If someone felt lectured, maybe that says more about them than about the film. Colbert wasn't backing down. But you have to admit there was a political element. The patriarchy commentary, the corporate criticism, the feminist messaging, that was all very deliberate. Of course it was deliberate, Margot said, her patience visibly wearing thin. We made thoughtful choices about the story we wanted to tell, but calling it political propaganda is reductive and frankly insulting to everyone who worked on that film. I didn't say propaganda. You implied it, Margot cut him off. You spent the last 5 minutes suggesting the film had some hidden agenda, instead of just being a well-crafted story about finding yourself. Colbert shifted in his seat. I think you're being a bit defensive here, Margot. I'm just asking the questions that a lot of people have. Are you? Margot challenged. Or are you creating controversy where there isn't any? Because that's easier than actually discussing the artistic merit of what we created. The studio had gone quiet. This wasn't playful banter anymore. The artistic merit, Colbert said, and there was definitely condescension in his tone now, was overshadowed by the political messaging. That's not me saying it. That's what the discourse became. The discourse, Margot repeated. Stephen, do you know what the actual discourse was? It was mothers telling me to film help them talk to their daughters about self-worth. It was men saying they finally understood the pressure women face. It was people finding joy in something that celebrated authenticity. But you want to reduce all of that to a political debate. I'm not reducing anything, Colbert protested. I'm pointing out that the film divided people along political lines, whether you intended it to or not. Everything divides people along political lines now, Margot said, her voice rising. Wearing a mask divides people. Drinking certain beer divides people. Existing as a woman with opinions divides people. Should we just stop creating anything meaningful because someone might politicize it? That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Margot demanded. Because it sounds like you're telling me that making a film about a woman finding her purpose was somehow controversial. That exploring real emotions and real struggles was pushing an agenda. Colbert tried a different approach. Look, I'm just saying that when you make a film with $1 billion platform, you have a responsibility to consider how it might. A responsibility to who? Margot interrupted. To people who want entertainment to be mindless? To people who think movies should just be 2 hours of nothing? We made something that meant something to people, Stephen. We made something that sparked conversations, that made people think, that brought genuine joy. And you're sitting here suggesting that was somehow wrong because some commentators decided to weaponize it for culture war nonsense. The audience was completely silent now, transfixed by the confrontation unfolding before them. I think you're misunderstanding my point, Colbert said, but his voice lacked conviction now. No, Stephen, I understand your point perfectly, Margot said, and her voice had gone cold. Your point is that a film celebrating women, exploring identity, and questioning societal norms is inherently political and therefore divisive. Your point is that we should have made something safer, something that wouldn't challenge anyone or make anyone uncomfortable. That's not. Let me finish, Margot said sharply, and Colbert actually fell silent. You brought me here under the pretense of discussing our sequel. Instead, you spent 15 minutes interrogating me about why our film dared to have substance. You've reduced a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon that brought joy to millions of people down to your political talking points. Margot, I think you're overreacting. Don't, Margot said, holding up her hand. Don't you dare tell me I'm overreacting. You've just spent this entire interview dismissing the work of hundreds of artists because it doesn't fit your narrative about woke culture and political messaging. Colbert's face was reddening. I'm asking legitimate questions that your audience wants answered. My audience? Margot's voice rose. Stephen, my audience loved the film. They understood it. They connected with it. The only people who had a problem with it were professional commentators looking for something to be outraged about. And apparently, you've decided to join them. That's completely unfair, Colbert protested. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about the film's impact. Honest? Margot stood up slowly, and the movement sent a shockwave through the studio. Stephen, there's nothing honest about this conversation. You came in with an agenda. And when I wouldn't play along, you doubled down. Sit down, Margot. We're not finished. Yes, we are, Margot said firmly. She reached for her lapel microphone. I came here to talk about art, about creativity, about a project that millions of people loved. Instead, you wanted to debate whether women deserving respect is political propaganda. That's not what I said. Colbert's voice was getting desperate now. It's exactly what you said, Margot replied. her fingers working the microphone clip. You just dressed it up in questions about discourse and divisiveness and cultural responsibility. But at the end of the day, you're uncomfortable that a film about a woman finding her voice resonated so deeply with so many people? Colbert stood as well, clearly panicking. Margot, please, let's take a breath here and— No, Margot said simply. I'm done taking breaths while you insult my work and everyone who connected with it. I'm done pretending this is a legitimate discussion when it's really just another attempt to tear down something successful and meaningful because it made people think. You're making a huge mistake, Colbert said, and there was anger in his voice now. Walking off this show, people will think you can't handle criticism. Margot turned back to face him, and her expression was devastating in its calm intensity. Stephen, I can handle criticism. What I won't handle is having a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon that brought joy to millions of people reduced to a political talking point by someone who clearly never understood what we were trying to do. She set her microphone on the chair and straightened her pink blazer. The studio audience was frozen, watching this unprecedented moment unfold. You know what the saddest part of this is? Margot continued, looking directly at Colbert. You could have asked about the creative process. You could have asked about the sequel's themes. You could have had a real conversation about art and storytelling and what it means to create something that resonates with people. Instead, you chose to turn it into a culture war debate. That's not journalism. Stephen, that's just lazy. Security, Colbert called out, and the desperation in his voice was obvious. Don't bother, Margot said, already moving toward the edge of the set. I'm leaving on my own terms, just like Barbie did. She paused at the edge of the stage and looked back one final time, not at Colbert, but at the cameras, directly addressing the audience at home. To everyone who loved Barbie, who saw themselves in it, who let it mean something to them, thank you. Don't let anyone tell you that finding joy in art that celebrates who you are is political propaganda. And don't let anyone reduce your experience to a talking point. Then Margot Robbie walked off the Late Show set with her head held high, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a flustered host, and a moment that would define how Hollywood responds to bad faith criticism. The camera stayed on Colbert as he stood there, visibly shaken, trying to figure out how to salvage the disaster. After what felt like an eternity, he turned to the audience with a forced smile. Well, he said, his voice strained, I guess we'll go to commercial a bit early tonight. But everyone watching knew that no commercial break could fix what had just happened. A mask had slipped, and one of Hollywood's most respected actresses had just shown the world exactly how to stand up for your work, with grace, intelligence, and unwavering conviction. So, there you have it. The complete breakdown of how Margot Robbie walked off The Late Show after refusing to let a billion-dollar cultural phenomenon be reduced to political talking points. What started as a promotional interview turned into a masterclass in standing up for your art and refusing to engage with bad faith criticism. Was Margot right to walk off? Or should she have stayed and continued the debate? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit subscribe for more celebrity interview breakdowns and let me know what other confrontations you'd like covered. Because if this taught us anything, it's that sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is simply refusing to participate in it.